World, the time has come to record once again. Hi.
Ethan and Benjamin Castle are Americans. Watching the footy.
Liam Ryan saying, kick it my way, I want to jump over the pack, and here he comes! Ryan!
This is Buddy Franklin! This is the greatest showman!
Got the handball off to Myers. Myers looking for the lead of Stengel. Gee, they're good. Gee, they're sharp. Razzle dazzle Rioli.
Oh, who else? McDonald!
From inside the centre square. Boys kick the goal. Boys kick the goal. From inside the centre. Foul. Oh, they can't believe
Hi, everybody. Hi, Dr. Ethan. Good time of day. Welcome to episode 218 of Americans Watching the Footy. I am Benjamin Castle coming to you from South San Francisco, California. And there's a very energetic cat right beneath me.
His middle name is Harambe.
Yes, it's Grind the Footy Cat.
I'm Ethan Castle, also coming to you from South San Francisco, California.
A short break from school. Got a few weeks to go in my fall semester.
You go to school? Fucking nerd.
I'll be going to school for the rest of my life. Honestly amazing that we had like so much of a footy teacher crossover within our circle, because I would make 3 teachers in our footy fantasy league.
Huh. I never thought of that, but I guess you're right.
Yeah, because there's Craig and there's Gil. Just incredibly strange there. But yeah, update on stuff with me. So in all likelihood, my walk is going to begin in January 2025 when I'm back there for intercession. I'll have plenty of time on weekends there to do most of my journey from San Diego to Los Angeles. Then we'll see maybe if there's some sort of fundraising that I could do alongside that. If you want to get in touch with Barish and the USAFL on that. The main goal, other than blowing up and acting like we don't know nobody, is for me to finish that prior to the start of the new AFL season, which is, I think, March 6th. We've got the full fixture.
We talked about that already in a prior episode.
Yeah, but it is March 6th, I believe.
Yeah.
Doing a countdown thing on Twitter, made sure I was caught up on that. Just like weird random stats and stuff. We are within 100 days now. So I guess that's exciting.
Still got a ways to go, honestly. Even though we're starting to see, training gallery stuff, it doesn't feel real.
Women's grand final is North in Brisbane in a rematch of last year. I know that's sold out Prince's Park again rather quickly. Would love for them to be able to keep Marvel unbooked for that in the future.
I mean, it would be nice if we could also, have a reliable time of year where we know the women's grand final is going to be. Because, at times it's kind of floated around.
At this point, though, it looks like end of November, beginning of December is going to be the norm. They've already established that next season it's going to start earlier and it's going to be 12 rounds over 12 weeks. So gradually continued expansion. No ridiculous 5 games in 4-week stretches, which is nice.
I mean, that was one of the fun parts of the 2020 season.
For all the wrong reasons? Pretty much, yeah. We had pretty much a game every day.
Yeah, and I did like that.
Especially because there was so little that was on otherwise. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why we got into Australian rules in the first place. We talked about this a bit way back in the Footy Origin Stories episode, our very first episode.
And we've mentioned it in other episodes too.
But just the constant stream of footy at that time, a somewhat reasonable time of day on the West Coast. Because a lot of these games were
9, 10 p.m. There was a lot of games bouncing in the 10 to 11 p.m. range.
So even if there were other sports going on then, they'd be mostly done by the time the footy started. Because most of the time, you got games starting on the West Coast, basketball or hockey, those would go 7:30 to 10, unless you had crazy overtimes or game-ending stuff. Another nice thing about Aussie rules is just games are reliably a certain length.
Generally speaking, within a 10-ish minute window.
2.5 to 2:45. And because there's no overtime, that's even more fixed. It's amazing just how out of hand the length of basketball games can go between close endings and overtime. The longest minute of your life is the end of a close basketball game.
Yeah.
Imagine if there was a timeout that coaches could use in Australian rules. Like,
Well, that's one of the things that when I've told people about how like no lead is safe, that's a big reason why. You know, you kind of just have to send a runner out there to try to get that adjustment right. And sometimes they don't get it right.
no, that's how you can blow a 44-point lead in finals. It's still hard to believe that happened. While we're on the topic of American things, how's Alex Condon looking?
Looks like he's having a pretty nice start to his season, averaging 11.5 points and 6.3 rebounds per game.
I'd say that's pretty quality if you're looking at an NBA prospect.
I mean, it's okay. Hasn't
Really like gone off in any game yet, but Florida's played a decent non-conference schedule.
Yeah, he's put up 12 in today's win over Wake Forest. He did score 23 in a November 7th win over Jacksonville, in which he also hit the only 2 threes he's hit this season. And I'm a believer that, you know, three-pointers shouldn't matter if you're 6'11", but that's not how today's NBA works.
So many college guys, you see these like 6'8" or taller, spending hardly any time in the paint. It just seems incredibly weird to me. I wouldn't say they're afraid of contact, but just a shift in how the game is played. I almost find it strange that there hasn't been more of an exchange between college basketball and Australian rules since Mason Cox.
I mean, hopefully it'll start to happen more and more. I'd really like it if it did.
There are a couple guys who said, oh yeah, it would totally fit for him to go over. But the only guys that have gone over from college basketball are Australians, like Matthew Owies.
Oh yeah, he was a former basketballer.
Yeah, played for the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. And we mentioned other ones like Hugh Greenwood,
Former basketballer.
New Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Who is the strangest American athlete that you've thought of in like an Aussie rules context?
I don't know. Sorry, I don't have anything better for you there.
No, we need like a good linebacker or like a front seven defensive player who would fit.
Vince Wilfork.
There are multiple reasons why I'm laughing right now. There are inside jokes. There's the fact that he was just gigantic. I'm thinking about the Hard Knocks clip where he showed up in cowboy boots and overalls to the Texans training camp. He was also, I guess, partially responsible for the butt fumble in a good way.
You know what's funny? What people don't talk about is they think the Jets also gave up a fumble and touchdown on the ensuing kickoff after the butt fumble.
How long ago has the butt fumble been now? It's been 12 years?
Yeah. But if you just look at the play-by-play summary, I believe the following kickoff, I think Julian Edelman was on special teams and ended up running it in.
Very next play. Kickoff recovery touchdowns are sights to behold. You had like 1 or 2 in college everywhere where guys just like failed to remember the rules of kickoffs.
Yeah, just gonna let it sit in the end zone.
Just like, hey, that's not how a kickoff works, and I guess we don't have that at the NFL level, do we?
I don't think so. I don't think it would be dynamic enough.
That game ended 49-19, was that?
I don't think so.
It is the only 49-19 game in NFL history. So the butt fumble was part of scoregami, which is more and more common in Australian rules, just because there are more combinations of scores and more ways for things to get out of hand. Scoregami, there's no way for scoregami to be as appreciated as much in Australian rules.
No, I think people have appreciated it, but there's there's an understanding. Between scoring in 6s and 1s versus the NFL where you're scoring in 7s, 3s, occasionally 8s or 6s and 2s. That's what really does it. Whereas, the ability to score a single point,
it means absolutely everything is on the table.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas in the NFL, it's incredibly tough to get 32 in a game. And of course, we had a 32 scoregami this year.
That being, I don't remember.
Niners 32, Jets 19.
Oh.
That was a Monday game, week 1. Wait, we've actually had 2. Dolphins 32, Jets 26 in overtime. The Jets have lost 2 32 scoregamis this year. That is insane. I am laughing because I saw something that Dwayne Russell said on, I think, his radio program.
Was it like a Leo Messi or Pat Mahomes comment? Or
No, the world's oldest man died this week. He was 112 years old. If he was a St. Kilda fan, he saw only one Saints flag.
Harsh but true.
St. Kilda. Rebrand done right.
Ooh, I haven't even checked the new logo.
It's incredibly simple, but unfortunately, they're no longer a fast food chain.
Aww.
I guess they also got rid of the Latin motto. It'll be like on the hemline or something now. But it's simple. It's a minor change. There's no need to make a huge fuss about it.
I did like St. KFC, though.
It's a clean shield. It's nothing crazy. There's brand integrity there.
Yeah, sometimes I think when stuff gets simplified, it gets oversimplified. Aside from the silliness of St. KFC, which I will miss, they did a good job on this.
I think they're keeping the black box on the uniforms, though. That's always struck me as odd, the logo being in that weird black box. We actually didn't really talk about the rebrands last episode. Saints, no fuss. Adelaide grew on me very quickly.
Crows, when I first saw like the prototype, I wasn't a fan, but there were some minor tweaks from like the leak and what we actually got that seemed to definitely help things.
And look, the jersey isn't really changing. They refined the colors a bit. I don't know. It's still definitely a bit angular. I know they were trying to make it look like the shape of South Australia. I don't really see it, but it's better than what they had, which was a Ravens knockoff.
I mean, there was something slightly endearing about that, but it's better. This is better.
If you're trying to be the Ravens, you have to at least make finals.
Yeah. And some people have to think your coach is really great, and some people have to think he sucks.
And really, everybody thinks he sucks, and now he's going to be at Harvard Business School for a bit, and he's going to be visiting with the Celtics, I think.
Matthew Nix is?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think there's as much of a split in opinions on Matthew Nix like there is on John Harbaugh. I will say, I am a hater, but I like when John Harbaugh went for 2 to try to go up 9. It was a shitty play because the Ravens don't have good 2-point conversion plays, it seems.
That was the one where it was just too high for Bateman and then went through, was it Likely's hands?
Something like that. But I
honestly didn't mind the design because he had 2 potential targets there. Oh yeah, you were there.
Yeah. I was very disappointed to not find any Australians.
I was going to say, because they had somebody with like the brand new Suns merch at SoFi a couple weeks ago.
The mighty Sun.
Seriously? I didn't even catch that.
Yeah. And you were there for the doubleheader. Well, 2 and 2 nights.
That's not a doubleheader. That's just 2 games in 2 days.
Just don't really see that.
I mean, Brian did it last year at MetLife.
I mean, I guess those are the only 2 places you could have it. Especially now that I don't think any other teams in major sports share venues anymore.
Not within the same league.
With the Clippers now having their own arena in Inglewood. And the Dacos brothers stuck around in America for a while because they went to the Eagles Thursday nighter. Is it going to be Rams and Eagles in 2026?
I think it's going to be Rams Cardinals. I've been over this with you, I think. I've been over it on this show.
Well, whoever it is, I think it's probably going to be Sydney at the National Stadium.
And what makes you say that?
Rectangular. Not going to interfere with changing it over for cricket or anything.
I think they like the idea of 100,000 seats, though.
They aren't putting any Rugby World Cup stuff at the G.
When's that?
2027.
And that's union, not league.
Yeah. I wouldn't care much about the League World Cup. I think I've gone over this. Union is the far superior rugby code.
I will fight over this. I am in full agreement.
And I'll definitely be going to some, I guess, Division II rugby in the spring, because that's what San Diego plays. And maybe I'll go to some MLR.
I miss the montage.
It'll be back in March, we think.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be. It can't ever go away. It's just I want it now.
Well, there are 2 montages, remember?
Yeah, well, you rarely actually get the second one.
Yeah, the Wigan Warriors montage?
Something like that.
The 2013 Sydney Roosters montage still makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like, how has there not been something more recent, whether NRL or AFL?
Because the 2013 Sydney Roosters fuck.
Honestly, it's easy enough to make a Penrith montage now. They won 4 in a row.
But did they fuck?
That's up to you. Okay, we mentioned it a bit. Suns.
I'm not a fan.
Firstly, have you seen how the tiny little stickers they've been putting on things recently?
No, but I kind of like that.
There's like tiny little things of stickers of the logos that you could barely see because it's almost the same color. Like they stuck it on a dusty mural and other just random things. It's so minnow club behavior, and it just makes me wish that it had been the Southport Sharks all along. It seriously looks like a pathetic little advertisement on like the dusty mural. Like you're trying to be relevant and you're trying to be cool like the Giants, and it's just not working.
This could be funny,
but you have to be more strategic about it then, right?
If you did it the right way, it could be really funny. You could do it like the chill guy meme, except if it was actually funny, because the chill guy meme isn't really funny.
No.
Oh, also the Suns made a reference to that.
Of course they did.
It's more just there's a lot of how do you do fellow kids energy in this. And that's the concern I have.
The patches, though, just look so terrible because no difference in the color.
The whole thing looks like shit. Okay, guys? We can just say that. It's a shitty logo. The jumpers are terrible. The whole thing is dumb.
The things that are extra suns, I put in red.
Everything's in red.
Yeah, I know.
Seriously, what was the problem with gold on the jumper? You are the Gold Coast Suns? There's what? It's plain to a point of obsolescence?
So here's the thing.
Started out friends.
Gonna borrow from Baseball Barbacast and fire up the multiple things can be true machine. On one hand, the old logo was very generic.
On the other hand, the new logo is very generic.
It's not just generic, it's just not good. If that logo was a hood ornament, it would work.
It looks better off the jumper.
It looks like a hood ornament for a 1980s car.
I mean, it gave me like a 70s, 80s logo vibe. I compared it to like the Atlanta Flames A or the Canucks Flying Skate.
I can see a little of that, except the Canucks Flying Skate is great.
Also, the fact that they eliminated the blue elements from the home jumper as well. And now the Clash just looks like they're trying to be West Coast, which I would only want to be right now in terms of member count.
Yeah, basically, the old one, as bland as it was
still distinctive-ish.
Yeah, it really didn't tell you anything about the team, but it told you it stood out. This one is just like objectively ugly.
Could it have been fixed by making the logo gold? Partially, but not fully? Like, what direction would you have gone? Something more sun-like?
Yeah, I think I would have done something like that. Like, I don't think it has to be all simplistic. I think something with like, rays poking out, like the sunflower logo on the Kansas State highway signs. I know that's kind of ultra specific, and I don't care. I'm going with it.
Okay, maybe
something like that, except where it's like red in the middle, and then it's kind of got the pointy rays on the outside. I think that could have been something.
Would you have kept a GC word mark somehow?
I think so. I think I would have done it like the one that was always on Stuart Dew's hat, the kind of USC looking one. I actually really like that.
I completely forgot that existed. Like, there are elements of a good brand here that were washed away. Yeah, it was totally a USC look.
Yeah, and I think it actually totally worked.
Were they scared about copyright infringement? I mean, USC is kind of always in for a money grab. You also said their fight song would work for a footy team.
Did I?
I said Maryland and Texas were better candidates.
Yeah, Maryland works. Texas, I don't know.
Speaking of Stuart Dew, I think he's full-time now as an assistant with the Brisbane Lions, which is funny for multiple reasons. It's not just being fired and going to your rivals, it's the fact that you're going to an established club and winning instantly as well. What do the Suns have to offer at this way? The Suns are always kind of on their own island in footy anyway, between yet to make finals. They're so academy exclusive when it comes to the draft. It seems like they're just not integrated with the AFL landscape, at least in any real solid way. They exist, but they're not really like an item of great discussion.
I mean, I think they get talked about a decent amount for, proportional to their achievements. It's just everything about them seems amateurish and not in like a funny way. Whereas like GWS, some of the kind of unprofessional, goofy stuff they do, they've cultivated this brand. They've had success on the Oval, and they just provided entertainment.
And then they have speech show up.
I have no idea why. This could also be another like, how do you do fellow kids deal.
Okay, but for the Giants, it doesn't feel as much how do you do fellow kids. It's like,
I still don't know who is this guy? What does he do? I know he's a YouTube guy. That's really all I've got for you is he is a YouTube guy.
And he's only 19.
What is his bit? What is his thing?
Just very exuberant sort of live streamer. I know he's got a bunch of soccer associations. He was invited to like a couple Ballon d'Or ceremonies and just has a big following. And he was in Australia and on Friday the 22nd showed up at Giants training. And he refused to admit defeat to Darcy Jones in a sprint. Yes, Darcy Jones was wearing a hat. But he has to have his head covered at all times.
Maybe it's a religious thing.
The religion of good footy? I think Darcy Jones is probably one of our favorite emerging players at this point.
I'd say so.
Had 2 great performances against the Lions, and they couldn't beat him a third time. I don't know if that's a big deal in Australian Sports all just like can't beat teams a third time.
Yeah, when actually, like, within the NFL, that's generally not true. That's the funniest thing about it, is it's generally not true. Like, if you've beaten a team twice, that probably means you're better.
It's a whole thing that comes up anytime divisional opponents face off in the playoffs. Oh, it's so hard to beat a team 3 times.
Hey, you know what they say? If you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback.
I would agree, New York Giants. And Speed, it honestly makes sense, though, that he'd show up at a footy thing. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, the weirdest possible online person for that. Like, he makes way more sense showing up at that than someone like Jack's films.
See, that would be really funny because Jack would be so out of place.
He'd be as out of place as Conan O'Brien at a Sydney Swans session, which has happened. You remember the great No Australian team?
Yeah, I loved it. It was hysterical.
I think my favorite is still Samuel L. Jackson going up for a mark against Rob Harvey. Because it looked like he belonged.
Yes.
You know, Benjamin, 78% of our listeners are between 18 and 35 years old, so they probably want to start a podcast like we did. How did you know that number, Ethan? Thanks to the analytics we have for Spotify for Podcasters. Formerly known as Anchor, sorry Frio fans, Spotify for Podcasters has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from your phone or your computer. No fancy software needed. It's so easy you can edit it while drunk. And Spotify for Podcasters doesn't just allow you to upload to Spotify, you can also distribute your podcast on platforms like Apple, Stitcher, and more, just like we do. Best of all, it's completely free. Not only is it free, you can even make money from listener support or ad revenue. Hint, hint. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to podcasters.spotify.com to get started today.
Welcome back to Americans Watching Footy. I guess it's episode 218. We're just doing general offseason and draft stuff. Find us collectively on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, at Americans Footy. Individually, I am on Twitter at Castle Media.
I'm at Benjamin HK01, and the very furry thing curled up next to Ethan is on Instagram at Cat Named Brian. He is 4 years old, I guess.
Yeah.
He's been having fun tonight, playing laptop. There's like this space in between the monitor and the hinges where he even sticks his fingers, and Brian has lots of fun with that.
I think we've talked about this before.
Get to have a video of it at some point, you playing laptop. You wonder if Brian would get along with Leo Puglisi's cat, Ebony.
I'd like to think so.
Good thing Leo's 17.
This whole social media ban idea is so fucking stupid, okay? I generally don't try to interject myself into other nations' politics, but this is fucking stupid. What a colossal waste of time.
And the fact that both major parties endorse it.
How? Why?
Wouldn't this be an easy thing to win over people for the election cycle coming up soon?
So dumb.
You want to strike fears of a surveillance state? This is the way to do it. I mean, having said that, Australia probably has all our data already.
They probably just think like, man, these guys are cool as shit.
My guess is that at least 5 countries already have all our data.
Which 5?
US, Canada, Australia, China, Israel.
All right, well, I would think 3 or 4 of those 5 would have positive opinions of us. I mean, I'll talk a lot of shit about the Canadian government and then obviously China.
Definitely want to visit Canada again, though. Spend some real time there in the winter, hockey season, all that. But hopefully footy pilgrimage comes first. Trying to iron out the details of that. Unsure whether I can go this summer reasonably with job hunting and all that and finishing up my master's. Ethan will be going, though.
I am definitely going. Probably sometime in July. It's just a matter of when specifically. Let's talk graph stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I was watching decent amount of the first round live. Was surprisingly enjoying it. So much of draft coverage in America just seems slow and unnecessary. We don't have any of like the crazy highlight packages with like the hype NFL films music and the sob stories.
He has great hands, unlike his sister who lost both of her hands in a tragic 5-car pileup,
of which she was the only survivor.
I mean, wasn't there one a few years ago, like someone's mom being a victim of an acid attack?
DeAndre Hopkins' mom was blinded by that. That's why he hands her the ball after he scores.
I also remember, of course, Alex Leatherwood being renowned for his meme collection.
Isn't he out of the league?
I think so.
I was going to say, he was cut like his second season, was one of the typical Raider unknown picks. No, Charger practice squad. He lasted 1 season with the Raiders. There's no like AFL club that's like renowned for their weird draft choices like the Raiders are in America. Like, I guess Essendon can sometimes go off board in weird ways. I think they actually made out pretty well getting the future first for next year. Plus, it delayed the bid on Isaac Kako, which meant they didn't have to bid as much. Isaac Kako, Iraqi Ryan.
So
You've seen the hair, right?
yeah, I kept up less with draft stuff this year because, well, Geelong didn't really have a first round pick and there wasn't, a Harley Reid. But I can tell you my knowledge of Geelong's draft, which was all, later picks.
They took pick 69.
Yes, mostly they just went tall, especially at forward, but all around they just got tall guys.
They also got one of the best names in the draft. I think Kyton Mattify Forbes. That was pick 69. And they did take a ruck, but not the one that everybody was linking them to in Dodson. They actually took his teammate from Sturt, Jacob Mollier. I didn't realize Alex Dodson had like Division I basketball offers and didn't play footy at all in 2023.
Like, who did he have offers from? Do we know anything about this?
Unsure. He was also linked to the Adelaide 36ers. And I think...
I saw there was like a Adelaide 36ers, Melbourne United, like almost mini Malice at the Palace thingy.
Was that the thing with Montrezl Harrell?
Yes.
Of course it's Montrezl fucking Harrell.
I mean, I like it.
He's got this reputation, though, going back to Louisville, I remember. The classic hothead.
I just think he's like one of the most entertaining dunkers.
Seriously, though, like, when I was looking at Isaac Kako, looking at his highlights and seeing the hair, my thought was Iraqi Gryan. And then it was solidified even more when one of the guys on the broadcast, I forget if it was Mick Ablett or Kevin Sheehan, actually made the player comp to Gryan Myers in terms of like his delivery inside 50.
Did they say anything about his kicking style?
I don't think it's that unique. There aren't too many guys with dreads, so that's something to cherish. Also, his sister is in San Diego, and now I want to meet her. I don't know if it's like a steady thing that she's there. I think it was some sort of educational thing, but she was on a call at 1-something a.m. or whenever the draft pick was. There's so much there. There's much more of the AFL draft in terms of like getting to interview the family for a bit as well. And the scenes from home are cool. It seems way more exciting, like the scenes from home there than you get for America, like especially for the later round picks.
Okay, so I want you to give me like a very brief rundown in as few words as possible, because I know about a couple of important draft things.
Like the guy who took the huge mark for Norwood somehow getting drafted in the first round.
Who took him?
Huge surprise to see him get taken that early. Ned Bowman was taken with pick 26 by Sydney. So
you're already using more words than you should.
But you remember the huge Norwood mark in like the under 18s. That was him.
All right. So I just want you to give me like a brief recap of, and again, in as few words as possible, like, why waste time, say lot word when few word do trick? Like that, basically, for, who you think won the draft, who you think lost the draft. And I will get into my thing about one particular draft moment that I am acutely aware of.
Okay, predictable top 10. Toomey nailed it. Some bids a little later than people thought. West Coast came out of this pretty well, even though they traded out of pick 3, so could have had Jagger Smith. Their trade ended up falling down to 15 initially. Then they screwed Freo out of a player by letting Port pick ahead of them. And they landed with Bo Allen, who is Freo's inaugural captain's younger son. So we'll have an Allen Derby, I guess, between Collingwood and West Coast. Always cool seeing brothers playing against each other. West Coast also had a couple other targets fall down the board that ended up pretty nicely, including one of Harley Reid's schoolmates and Joe Shanahan and a couple Westerners. I can't think of anybody like really losing the draft except for the thing you're thinking of. This is...
It seemed like one of the Saints early picks seemed to get a lot of like, what are they doing?
Was this Alex Tarud being taken that early? He was a late bolter up the board, and maybe Travaglio was a little high. I don't think anything was crazy for them. No, I like Toby Travaglio a lot.
But clearly the story of the draft, at least in my eyes, and I think in a lot of people's, was North what the fuck.
I guess they really wanted Matt Whitlock.
I now have to scrutinize everything this guy does, and he's going to get stuck with a lot of unfair pressure because either they really want him or they don't like next year's draft class, or they think, oh, our pick, our first round pick next year is going to be way lower. It won't be.
No, I hope this blows up like the 2023 Carolina Panthers.
Because they gave up their first rounder to Richmond basically to move up, just a couple spots?
Yeah, because I think Richmond also had pick 28.
Yeah, this seemed really pointless.
Or actually, no, North might not have had another pick for a while. I forget if they had bid on anyone. That might have been why the cost was higher, but still, it feels so...
It's still a drastic overpay.
And there were enough guys that had slid down the board at that point, too. I mean, you see Job Shanahan had slid down to 30 and was one of the Eagles' pickups. There were other talls who had slid down when you saw guys like Bowman going early. It feels very unnecessary, and I think the funniest part, aside from the fact that they gave up next year's first, is that his twin brother got drafted to Port. So now I want to see the North one request to Port very quickly. Just a repeat of Horn Francis.
Here he is again, the horny one.
This trade reminds me of a famous scene in Family Guy. Or I don't know how famous this scene actually is. When Stewie and Brian are on their way to the North Pole, and this Canadian guy offers them his snowmobile, and then he also offers them his leg.
I feel like you could have also made that joke earlier with West Coast offering pick 3.
Yeah.
But Eagles came out of this much better than I see North coming out of it. The only way for this to look good for North is if they shoot out of the bottom 6, and even then.
Or if Whitlock just becomes the best player ever. Now, one other question I've got for you.
No, his name is pronounced Ow, not Off.
No, it wasn't even that.
Okay, but it is Jack Ow, who was picked by GWS at number 36.
I mean, that's also a entertaining name, but my main question, what is the time frame on Richmond's rebuild? When do you think they're going to be relevant? When could Richmond next play finals?
Oh, geez. At least 3 years off. So I'm not sure if Uze is going to be around for their next finals trip. It's the same way where I'm not sure if McQualter is going to be around for the Eagles' next finals trip. You're signing up for a rebuild job, and that's great and all, but your leash can't be that long, or else it's going to feel like your club's become complacent.
I mean, it depends on what you're asking of a coach, because it would almost feel like he's just basically there to take the fall, which would be wrong. And I think, if he can get his team playing well within the confines of what they've got, then he wouldn't deserve to be fired.
You have to be yourself, or at least within the confines.
With Richmond having all the new guys come in at once, I mean, I'm not sure if it can get much worse in terms of the actual senior outcomes because they won just 2 games. Strangely, one of them was against the Swans.
And the other was at Adelaide. I remember that one pretty thoroughly.
I like the former Crows captain, I think it was their Premiership captain, Mark Bickley, saying, "Mark my words, Richmond will be winless in 2025. That just makes me want to circle my calendar even more for when Richmond and Adelaide play. And we do not know the date for that yet. It's round 16, so last week of June.
I kind of love, by the way, the Ned Bowman reach. Because again, this pick might have been heavily influenced by one individual highlight. And I wouldn't blame the Swans if that was the case.
I mean, they desperately do need a fuller look at tall forward because the McDonald and Marty combination can only take you so far, and there's not much depth there. I mean, if they're going to, it just seems odd to reach so high in the first round for him because Fox Lab had him at, I think, rated number 89. So it was taken 63 above that.
Also,
oh, wait, I forgot to mention about North. They had offered their future first to every team starting with pick number 8. They offered their leg for 20 straight picks.
How did nobody take it sooner?
At what point should North have, dumbed down the offer to, stop offering the future first?
This just sounds like really bad negotiating on everyone's part.
Yeah, how did they not tame the offer with time? How stupid are they betting on themselves like this?
How stupid are the other teams that didn't jump on that?
Especially also considering, those bolters, as they're called, like Bowman. You have a guy that you value really highly who's projected to go in the 80s, so, probably not drafted at all. You absolutely take the future first from North for next year.
I do also want to note, I know you wrote down that GWS went kind of deep on the board as well.
Yeah, the Giants seem to be going for like very particular players.
They seem to have done that for a couple years now, and I'm not going to question it because it seems to be working for them.
Well, hopefully early 2025, we will see Phoenix Gothard for the first time, Connor O'Sullivan's good friend.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
You remember the scenes last year on draft night. I'm not sure if we had any of it this year, like a guy who was like invited with someone else. Just got drafted out of nowhere.
We definitely had some reaches, which is fun.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys weren't even there, like Bowman. I didn't get also why teams that had consecutive picks only bid with the second of them. Like St. Kilda had picks 7 and 8 initially. I guess that slid down to picks 8 and 9 once the Ashcroft bid came in. But the Saints had picks 8 and 9, I guess. They only bid with pick 9. It feels like too much of a you scratch my back type thing where you're like getting less value out of these bids almost purposefully.
Yeah, I mean, why not use the earlier one? Just from a points standpoint.
I forget who was saying just like, oh, you want to make sure like the first player you take actually feels like they were the guy you actually wanted.
That sounds really stupid and unnecessary.
Yeah, you maximize your value. I would have bid on every single player possible. Oh, yeah. I think they only bid on one in the first round. I forget that part. But Geelong later on actually did bid on 2 in a row. Ty Gallup from the Brisbane Academy, and then Ben Camporelli.
It's Ben.
Yeah, here's the thing. You can sabotage your opponents. You can be a dick.
That's not really the culture of list management at this point. You look at how trades have to happen with players requesting, and I guess that makes you want to be on good terms with everybody.
I want drama. And I want, for example, like, you know, when in the NFL, a team with way too much cap space will just like overpay someone and then drive up the entire market and fuck up everybody else.
That's the other reason why I want salaries public. I don't get why salaries aren't public.
If you had to choose one, salaries or player weights?
Salaries. Absolutely salaries.
I mean, I think both should be public, but
you want to know what teams have to work with in terms of cap space. People want to know how Geelong keep doing it. I just want to see like who's closest to the floor and why it's north.
I mean, it could be Richmond now.
Yeah, probably now Richmond.
There'll be a lot of like entry-level contracts and stuff for them.
Mm-hmm. I also found it interesting that we had 4 bids that went unmatched, including, funnily enough, Riak Andrew,
who is going to
the Sydney Swans.
Interesting.
Well, now that's a team that needs those sorts of dynamic talls. And look at what Mac did on both sides of the oval in 2024, really coming into his own. He had the winner after the siren. I think that was a 3-goal game for him. I think 4. He had like some solid multi-goal games there. It might have been 4.
Now I have to check.
It was 4. He had 3 the previous week against West Coast. Right, because it was a pretty late move for him going forward. And we can talk about that in terms of Gold Coast just with all the players they have in back, the addition of Daniel Rioli and John Noble into that group.
Mac Andrews' tables are just fascinating. No goals in his 4 games in 22. No goals in his 17 games last year. Takes him 13 games to get a goal this year.
And then goes off for 7 in 2 games late.
Then in his 18th game of the year, he gets 3. In his 19th, he gets 4, including the after the siren winner. And then 2 behinds the following week and a goal in a behind to close out the season.
I would imagine he's going to get some more forward time this next year because of just how crowded the back lines are. But maybe not as much fullback. Like halfback, there's a surplus there now. Rioli, Noble. You'd imagine Weller's going to be phased out. You could see Powell going up the wing more.
That's one of the fascinating career arc already.
And remember, the big deal was between 2021 and 2024, you couldn't match a next generation bid within the top 40. So Melbourne couldn't get access to Mac Andrew. Now they don't match his brother's bid. I just find that incredibly funny.
Any other draft stuff, or is it time to move on to our final big topic?
Just want to mention, you did have some mature ages in there, a couple 24-year-olds from Werribee's premiership team, so kind of following in the Sean Manna mold there. Their premiership captain, Dom Brew, is also going to be training with the Bulldogs, so hope he can get his AFL opportunity. I know he became a favorite for all sorts of reasons this year. A couple other state-level premiership players who got picked. Bo Allen was in the Peel Thunder premiership team before getting drafted into the AFL, which is pretty impressive. And Leo Lombard and his massive legs.
His interview was good. I did see that.
Just seeing the training photos of him, just like he's got like Tom Hawkins level tree trunks already.
He said the fuck word, so I like him.
Yes. Actually, he was a 2023 VFL Premiership player with a goal and 6 tackles in that grand final at age 16. Other than that, Sandringham Dragons producing all the draft picks, of course. In the preseason and rookie draft, just 14 of the 35 players selected, so 40% were redrafted by the same club. So that feels flawed in and of itself. We talked about rookie list stuff already. There were a couple AFL players who actually changed teams. Sam Day did go to the Lions. And
I think that's a good pickup, and I think he's going to end up becoming a pretty regular contributor there.
You know, on the older side, but good support, especially for Hipwood.
Yeah, and now that, you know, with Danaher's retirement, I think there are going to be plenty of opportunities there.
Yeah, past Hipwood, though, past Hipwood and Day, I mean, I guess they'll be relying on Logan Morrison. Henry Smith could get some more forward opportunities.
Yeah, there's like a real opportunity for Sam Day to get at least like 10 to 15 games.
They should have gone for Tim Membry. Yeah, everyone should have gone for Tim Membry, and Collingwood are very lucky to have him. And Ben Patton got a lifeline with the Swans. Here's a weird one. Brad Crouch was re-rookied and then retired 5 days later. I think there's got to be something financial there because they knew that he was going to be retiring with that knee injury, so why redraft him? Is it something with deferred money?
There's got to be some sort of salary something. I'm not sure what, but a salary something.
This is another reason why I want salary terms to be public, because this will be way more understandable. Just thinking about drafts, you look at next year, we know that the Suns obviously stacked up. They really value their academy class. Brisbane got a lot of third-rounders. The Eagles stacking up in the pursuit of Chad Warner, among others. But also remember the point system is going to totally change next year, so matching bids is going to be tougher. And then the horse decided to put himself to pasture?
To the glue factory.
This was kind of out of nowhere. I mean, he has contract through next year, and it seemed like a Dean Cox succession plan had been in place, but the timing of it is strange. He wasn't present in any drafting, and then just, it happened. How much is his legacy tainted by the grand final blowouts and his 1-4 grand final record?
I think 1-4 is more significant than the margins, but I think he should also be remembered as a coach who had a consistently strong club almost every single year, and other coaches always seem to speak highly of him.
I think he was one of the best in terms of halftime adjustments as well. We regularly noticed that, whereas the Swans would really respond to a lot of our concerns and put on some pretty good comebacks. I mean, those were necessary this year, though, because of how poor their first quarters were. So there's something there. And Longmire has now been named Executive Director of Club Performance. Is this contract fulfillment, or is this Brad Stevens?
Or is it just like, we like you and we want to keep you around?
And maybe dissuade you from going to Tasmania? He's got to be on the top of their list now. Unless you want to try and pry away the Premiership coach from Queens. I hope you all saw that Chris Fagan took the cup to the gravel oval.
I want to watch a game there.
I also want to watch a football game in Trona.
Yeah, it's a little bit more attainable. So basically, similar situation. It's a town in the far eastern reaches of California.
I don't even think it's officially a town. It's like an unincorporated community.
It's a mining community, and the soil isn't conducive to grass. I don't know why they don't just put in an artificial field, but I think at this point it's kind of like, this is our thing and we're going to stick with it.
Yeah, it's in the Inland Empire. I think it's close to Death Valley. It's a borax mining, I think.
I believe so.
And yeah, they play like 7 or 8 man football there because it's a tiny little school and it's a dirt field. They also had a golf course there that was entirely dirt, and like the greens were just a different type of dirt.
Yeah, Jeremy Cameron was playing a course recently where like you got to rake the greens and stuff because they're like basically dirt.
I need to check that out. It just does make me think Trona. I mean, we all saw that Dean Cox would be the next coach. That was pretty obvious, even though nothing had been announced.
Yeah, once he wasn't involved in like the Eagles search, etc., it seemed pretty obvious. It was just a matter of when, not if.
It feels strange to me also just this guy played at the peak of the Eagles-Swans rivalry and is now on the other side of it. So as it turns out, the succession plan had in place since mid-2023, and Cox had taken a lot more responsibility during the week. It was front and center on draft night. I don't think there's like any souring at the club like an Alistair Clarkson thing where we knew where the plan was made public and then he just left early. we've had a couple succession plans actually made public in our time watching, because I remember the John Worsfold, Ben Rutten one as well.
My favorite thing about Dean Cox is he looks like he was a very, very good Croatian athlete sometime around the 80s.
I asked Ethan, does he look more Croatian than Crow Cop?
I would say yeah.
Which is impressive. And I think we're not alone. I think Rudy put something out about it too. I guess that's the second coaching change for 2025. That seems like a low number. And I like that it's 2 first-time permanent head coaches, with Andrew McQualter being the other. It's not like hockey, where a dude gets fired and then gets hired by another team 5 days later.
That just happened like within the past week.
Yep, Jim Montgomery. Fired by the Boston Bruins after a slow start. St. Louis Blues brought him on within that next week. And now they've got the old Bruins coach is one of their assistants too. Hockey needs to take a memo from Australian football and other sports hey, first-time coaches are an okay thing. Why would you keep hiring people who have failed with other teams?
A big part of interviewing for any coach should be trying to figure out when is the next time I am going to have to fill this position instead of just gunning for the instant gratification.
In terms of succession plans, you don't really see that in the professional ranks in America.
About 15-ish years ago, maybe a little more than that, NFL teams were trying to do it basically to just
take guys off the market.
Pretty much just to retain an assistant. They would call someone the coach in waiting, even though it was going to be a 5+ years before the guy they were going to replace is going to step down.
I don't recall this. Do you remember who some of those guys were?
The New York Giants tried it. I remember a few other teams did it. It was a fad for a minute, and then it just kind of stopped because it was pretty ineffective.
I do not remember this at all. I mean, you've seen it a couple times in the college ranks, and those have also backfired because some of those guys have gone elsewhere. Jim Boeheim of Syracuse just kept saying, nah, I'm still coaching. And then their top assistant went away to Washington and turned out he wasn't that great.
No, it turned out he was a pretty lousy coach, honestly.
Yeah. So Syracuse, I think, is better off with, Alvin Autry instead of Mike Hopkins. Yeah. Duke's one where it actually happened in full. But I think the time frame was clearer on that too. Just Coach K is here for this many years, then John Shire is in charge. But yeah, I don't recall the last time it actually happened in full in a professional team in America. For whatever reason that is. We need to start showing people some games, Ethan. Yes, that's a priority.
We need to do that. We need to schedule a couple of interviews.
I definitely have some in mind. Now, I think I've been kind of preparing for it for longer than you have. Obviously, some of our American friends, but some Australians who I'm not sure have done much in terms of podcasting, which I think will make it more fun. Maybe we could establish something regular there, but for now, we're tired, and it's not because of turkey.
That's not even a thing. That's just not a thing.
No, people tried to say it was because of the amino acid or whatever.
It's made up.
Yeah.
Like Giuseppe Verdi.
What is that from?
A series of unfortunate events.
Lemony Snicket tried to insist that Giuseppe Verdi was fake.
Count Olaf insisted Giuseppe Verdi was a mythological figure.
Grind is super curled up and has just been perturbed by Ethan. He is on Instagram at catnamedGrind. His father is at Castle Media on just Twitter or what else?
Just Twitter.
I'm at Benjamin HK01, and I'm gonna get this out to y'all as soon as possible before I head back to San Diego.
What?
Are you playing Danny California?
My iPod come on? I've got my headphones here. Does that? Sometimes it just comes on in my pocket. Is that what's on?
Press you gotta pay when you raise up panorama.
Yes, sir.
Did I recognize the song?
I did not mean to do that, though.
I thought at first it was good, like the Pornhub sound effect for some reason.
No.